Welcome everyone, this is Yasser Al-Wasifi from Learn Dental Series. This episode we will continue our discussion about the different types of indirect tooth colored restoration. I would like firstly to declare that I don't receive fees, royalties or compensations from the sales of any of the products shown or discussed in this presentation, and this presentation is not sponsored by any company, agency or organization. It is only prepared for educational purposes. So this presentation is copyright protected and could not be transmitted by any means unless you get a prior permission from the author. In this episode, you are expected to identify and discuss different techniques and types of indirect tooth colored restorations. Already, we had discussed as introduction what is the difference between indirect versus direct technique, what is the advantages and disadvantages, indications, contraindications of indirect tooth colored restorations, and what are the remarkable differences between indirect tooth colored restoration cavity preparation and that for indirect metallic restoration. Then we classified our restorations according to the material used into composite resin group and ceramic group. We already classified them again into subgroups according to the technique of construction. For composite, it was direct, indirect technique, or chair-side flexible die technique, which is also called semi-direct one. For ceramics, either you use feldspathic porcelain inlay and onlays, then to increase the marginal accuracy and get a satisfactory marginal adaptation, we used castable ceramics in a form of castable glass or hot pressed ceramics that used lost wax technique. In this episode, we will go to discuss much more advanced technique, which is the machined ceramics. Machined ceramics in general mainly depends on how to copy mill the restoration from a model. This model could be generated either by an Pro Inlay or wax pattern or generated by a digital system. Most commonly used now are the design is generated by digital systems, which is CADCAM or based on CADCAM technology, which is the acronym of computer aided design, computer aided manufacture. Considering this item, especially CADCAM, and how it is introduced into dentistry, and now it is a great branch called digital dentistry that needs to be much more further discussed in full details. Okay, it is simply similar to your computer unit. If you are a graphic designer, then you should have a camera to capture the view, and then this digital camera should transmit your view or your photograph to CPU, where there is a software that manipulates those pictures, okay, and redesign them, reshape them if needed, and finally comes the printer, which is equivalent to our copy milling machine that also copy and print your photographic design or graphic design either in a photo paper or a normal paper, in black and white or in colored. It is typically the same. Then you have a picture for prepared cavity. Okay, this picture is transmitted into a CPU where it is manipulated by a specific software. Then you have a milling machine that instead of paper having a blocks of ceramics of different thicknesses, different qualities, different shades, okay, and a cutting tool that milling your digital design into an actual 3D design of your cavity. And the difference between systems are in how you transmit this image of your cavity details into your software. Then comes what is the accuracy of your software in detecting the full details of your cavity and in detecting and designing the full details of your restoration. It is similar to that, okay, and running parallel to the advancement in digital photography. Okay, if you remember 20 years ago, what is the resolution of your mobile camera photographs? Okay, and now we are playing with 4K or much more than 4K. Okay, this is the game. That's why we classified our system according to the technique they transmit the picture of cavity details into the system, okay, or to the milling machine directly into three types. Either we transmitted it with optical impression, okay, then we have a camera, okay, and as example for this, the most popular and most common system is CEREC system, and it is the first and oldest system in CADCAM technologies and density. Okay, then comes systems used tracers, which is the Selay system, but the Selay system actually is not a digital one. It just only describes how you could transmit your picture or your anatomy. It is not a picture, it is how to transmit anatomy by a tracer to the milling machine. It is still considered as a machined restoration, but it is not digital. Then comes one of the most recent is the Cavo Architica systems as example for using scanners, 3D scanners for the full details, okay, of your cast or of your model or of your cavity. Okay, then let us start with system used optical impression, which is ZEREK. ZEREK is the acronym of chairside economical restoration, okay, of aesthetic ceramics. Sometimes it is considered as the acronym of ceramic reconstruction because it uses solid blocks of pre-cerammed with definite shades ceramic blocks. Just only you are not in need to refire them or even to soften them to be molded. It is already hardened and solid. Just you are reshaping, reconstructing the shape of them for the internal to be copy milled or copied from the internal shape of the cavity and the external shape of your occlusion and tooth contact and contour. It was the first one which introduced in the copy milling systems or copy milling idea using the CADCAM technology, and its component is a miniature camera, computerized designer, okay, which will be the software like that for Photoshop, okay, and finally milling machine, okay, equivalent to that of the printer for graphic designer. Philosophy of CEREC systems, okay, is derived from its name, okay, CEREC, where the letter C means chairside treatment and restoration in one session. Okay, E is economical and profitable device or equipment. Okay, despite of the high initial cost, but it is considered as profitable one. Restoration with wide range of indications. Aesthetic tooth colored restorations because you are using ceramic restorations with enamel-like properties. Firstly, it was developed in Switzerland in 1984, and this prototype is called CEREC 1, where the first patient received CEREC restoration was in 19th of September 1984. But the main problem was inability to carve the occlusal anatomy at this time. We couldn't record the details of the cavity in 3 dimensions. Okay, we couldn't record the opposing occlusion. Okay, and that's why your cutting tools were run only into 2 axes, okay, and cutting in 2 dimensions rather than 3 dimensionals, and that's why it cuts only the fitting surface, okay, leaving the occlusal anatomy, okay, to be carved by the dentist. They thought that this is the easiest way, okay, because the dentist or the operator could not adjust his hand cutting to be matched with the details of the cavity. That's why the only machined part was the fitting surface of the restoration. Then, after 10 years, advanced software was added and CEREC 2 was developed, okay, where addition of stone to cut and adjust the occlusal anatomy. Then at this time, you could record 3-dimensional optical impression rather than 2-dimensional one, including the opposing occlusion. But still, the resolution could not allow to get a satisfactory result of marginal accuracy and still no specific proportion of the cavity design. This was CEREC 1, which was called, the prototype was called the Lemon, which is innovated by Dr. Werner Moorman in Switzerland and Marco Brandestini, okay, who was a dental lab technician, okay, and the right photo showing the saw or water turbine that cuts or reshape your blocks, okay, and how much the water coolant amount used to avoid any cracks of your final restoration due to heat generation. Then, after 10 years, in 1994, comes CEREC 2 was upgraded three-dimensional camera that allows you to carve or cut the occlusal anatomy and recording the opposing occlusion, and also adding much more tools to cut in 3 dimensions. But it's still also okay having a problem in marginal accuracy. It is not satisfied as operators expected from it. Then comes CEREC 3 at 2000s. Okay, it's a highly advanced software system, three-dimensional optical impression, specific proportion to the cavity design with satisfactory marginal accuracy. Also, the new software enables the operator to precisely adjust the restoration. That's why post-cementation adjustment is limited, okay, and multi-directed current cutting, okay. This is a multi-directed current, and in 2006 a stepper replaced the cylindrical one. At this time already the software is upgraded to cut or to copy mill the anatomy of a missed tooth. That's why we could reconstruct a full bridge, a full ceramic bridge, okay, with a Pontic tooth using this burr. This is one of the most updated CEREC systems. You could note that the milling machine is just in the size of a small printer, okay. This is a model of 2015. When reviewing the history and development of CEREC systems, okay, it is the idea developed in the University of Zurich, as we mentioned by Dr. Norman, okay, in 1980. But it comes to light, okay, and it comes to life, okay, or it was born in 1984, where they treated the first patient with CEREC restoration using VitaBlocks Mark I, okay. Then in 86, Siemens acquired a license to market their CEREC equipment. In 87, CEREC 1 was introduced, okay. In 94, CEREC 2 was introduced, increasing the range of indications for inlays, onlays, and veneers. 97, Crown 1.0 program was produced to cut a full ceramic posterior crowns. Then it is modified after that by 1 year. In 98, they developed the Crown 1.11 program for producing posterior and anterior restorations. In 2000, CEREC 3 was developed, introducing a Windows-based CADCAM system. You are not in need now to get a CPU, special CPU unit or a computer unit. Just you have your software and set up to your Windows-based computer, okay, to design with CAD/CAM systems different restorations, okay. Then in 2003, 3D software version was released, allowing user to see 3D views of the teeth and models, okay. In 2006, they released the biogeneric version of software. This software allows for the machine to accurately reconstruct the missing shape, okay, as they developed, as we mentioned before. At this time, they developed and introduced the stepper that allow you to reconstruct a Pontic. In 2008, Sirona, the owner company, introduced or released MCXL milling unit that has a faster milling techniques that could already finish a restoration in 4 minutes maximum, okay. In 2009, Sirona released Acquisition Center powered by Blowcams. In 2011, new software with much more accuracy and perfection of margins and fine details of anatomical contact, contours, and anatomy, okay. was developed in 12. Already CEREC celebrated 27 years in the digital dental market by introducing what is called OmniCam. What is OmniCam? It's a type of camera that does not require any anti-reflection powder, okay, and could correct any white spot resulting from reflection of light that damaged definite points in your captured photo for the details of your cavity preparation. That's why already they reduces the steps required to capture accurately the details of your cavity. Then in 2013, CEREC software 4.2 was introduced that allows the construction of restorations from different materials, including Evoclar and Vita blocks. Okay, allows for smile design. Software allows for smile design and already applies for virtual articulator to examine your contact contours and anatomy from different directions. Okay, similar to that if you have a live articulator. Okay, finally in 14, CEREC software is upgraded into 4.3, and in 15 software is upgraded into 4.4, okay, with new grinding tools that could reproduce the fine details of your fitting surface and the fine details of your anatomical tooth form and shape. Continuous development and refinement of all CAD-CAM technologies, either machines or industries or software, did not and will not stop till now. And we couldn't imagine what is expected in the future from those digital CAD-CAM based systems. Every now and then, ZEREK system has progressed mostly through a series of software and hardware upgrades since it is firstly introduced till now. All of these upgrades aims to increase the range of application of the machine and the range of restorations that you could construct from this machine, also to make it much more user friendly, and also it will be much more popular and much more easy to use in dental marketplace. Those was two articles I recommended to you if you would like to read much more about the history of CEREC system. Actually, I thought they were reviewed and updated and you could get much more information than that I had discussed. Let us go for the clinical part. Steps of fabrication, cavity preparation, and the lining if needed, but lining at this time not aims to block out undercuts, because you are using optical impression that has light transmitted into straight lines and could not bend to record undercuts. But here you are in need for lining in terms of pulp protection rather than blocking out undercut. Then optical impression, okay, you are using either 2D or 3D cameras that needs you to spray the cavity preparation with anti-reflection powder, which is titanium oxide, to eliminate the possibility of light reflection spots, okay, that will be produced and needs much more correction when you are designing your inlay or your restoration. But for the newly developed or introduced OmniCam cameras, you are not in need for this step. Only care should be taken, because only the technique sensitivity is limited to the optical impression procedure. Then your photograph of the details or cavity details are transmitted to your software, where you could generate your restoration design. Okay, you could review your design and correct it in different direction, in a 3D directions. Okay, according to the software you use, it could propose a design and propose a correction, and then you are reviewing it and you have all the freedom to accept this design or not, or to correct it. But older versions may need you just to trace the margins and just to design your restoration manually. Finally, after complete satisfaction of the operator by the design, a command is given to the milling machine to start milling in 3 axes and 3 dimensions of your restoration from a ceramic block. The ceramic block is checked for color matching with the tooth before holding it or before uploading it to your machine. Okay, and the procedure all in all may take from 4 to 7 minutes according to your system. In this photograph, we are now reviewing a CEREC 1, which is the primitive firstly introduced one. Okay, you could note the cavity first of all, and the lining is just limited to protect the pulp. Then the anti-reflection powder, titanium oxide, and the 2 dimensions or 2D camera used to record the fine details of your cavity and transmitted it into the computer. This was an old version, as old as more than 30 years or 35 years old, okay, where the operator are tracing the margins and designing the restoration manually without any proposal or any suggestions from the software itself. And then comes the disc cutter for milling restoration, which cuts in only 2 dimensions, not 3D dimensions, okay, and showing you also how much the amount of water they used to reduce heat generation and avoid cracks of the pre-ceramic ceramic blocks. This is the final restoration produced by CEREC 1, which was 35 at least years old. Okay, you could note that there is no occlusal anatomy. Okay, occlusal anatomy is left to be adjusted and or even created and carved by the operator with special cutting tools. You could note that the marginal fitness is far away of satisfaction, okay, and how much the gap between your fitting surface of the inlay and the tooth and the cavity walls, okay. This because of the resolution was not satisfactory at this time, and because of this marginal inaccuracy, okay, and because of the difficulty to reproduce the anatomy by hand carving using specific cutting rotary tools, okay, at this critical area, sometimes your restoration rocked in place, sometimes there will not be enough water coolant, and the restoration is fragmented and the procedure is repeated again and again. That's why at this time it was not popular, and it was also highly expensive and high cost procedure, okay, and it was non-profitable as assumed, okay, for the new devices, okay. Then your workpiece is also color corrected by adding low fusing feldspathic porcelain, and this is after cementation. You could note the marginal integrity is not satisfactory as expected. Let us go for CEREC 2, and this is also an old video about 20 years ago, but it is descriptive about the steps and could give you idea about the steps for constructing this is CEREC 3 for constructing your CADCAM CEREC inlay, okay. Due to a cause or another, this operator, with agreement of his patient, decide to replace all the amalgam restoration with this machined CEREC inlay, okay. He is using, I would like you to note how much the water coolant he is using when removing amalgam restoration and when cutting the cavity to avoid any pulpal involvement. And the tool he used is a diamond point with the recommended tapering of 6 to 8 degrees. At the same time, you could note its base. It is rounded in order to avoid any sharp internal line angles. Okay, he's now inspecting the cavity. You could note the undercut, but he will not line it because the optical impression having light running in a parallel direction that could not detect this. For a cause or another, he also decided to tip these cusps, buccal cusps, because he thought they are weak. He is tipping them for at least 2 millimeter, because he will use also a ceramic material which is still a brittle one that needs bulk. Okay, the operator evaluation at this time, he didn't believe that the resin-based cement is quite enough to bond the weak tooth structure with the strong one and reinforce the weakened tooth structure. In this part, he is trying to free the contact and place the cavity walls of the proximal box in a self-cleansable area, buccal embrasure, lingual embrasure, and gingival embrasure. Now, he's changing to a fine-tipped point just to remove any undermined enamel that may fracture under polymerization shrinkage stresses or under occlusal forces polymerization shrinkage stresses of resin cement. I'm just insisting to mark it is or highlight it is the shrinkage stresses of resin cement. Actually, he's not using a composite, he's using a ceramic one. Okay. Then inspecting the cavity and checking the cavity. After he is now absolutely satisfied by his cavity preparation, then comes for taking optical impression. He is using a special adhesive for the anti-reflection powder. Okay. Then spraying the anti-reflection powder, which is titanium oxide, to avoid any reflection spots that will destroy the accuracy of your image. Sufficient amount is sprayed to ensure that there is no reflection. Then this is the camera. The camera is controlled by a foot pedal. Okay. Camera should be parallel to the long axis of the tooth to get a proper top view. Now you could note that the undercuts are not registered. Okay. He's taking too many pictures to select the best one, and this is for the neighboring next tooth. Then he is now recording the occlusal relationship by using a special silicone jaw relation registration paste, cutting the excess. And now he is placing again his block bite registration block again into the cavity. Okay, spraying it also with anti-reflection powder, titanium oxide, and we'll get another picture to the opposing occlusion relation. What he will do is, within his software, he will apply both of them over each other to examine the occlusion and the occlusal relationship. But now the new systems already having a virtual articulator that allows you to get a picture of the upper opposing teeth and your cavity preparation. Is now constructing the die, removable die, and cutting the removable die. You could not even the selection was a hard stone. He's now tracing the margins. Okay. Some softwares gives you proposal or suggestions for tracing the margins, and you are reviewing it and correct it if you would like, or accept what is proposed or traced by the software itself. It is exactly the same as red pencil marking of your margins for other techniques we discussed before. He is reviewing his margin from all points. The system or the software allows him to inspect it in three-dimensional views. Then he is now give a command to build the restoration. Also, we could adjust it manual. Okay. Readjust the position of the contours, the contact, the anatomy. Exactly, he is dealing with it like a wax cutter, but instead of having curves, he has a mouse. Okay, it's easy to recontour it. Re-examine the thickness at different areas. Re-examine the margins again. Okay, where to build, because when he is adjusting his restoration, now he is checking occlusion and removing the high pressure premature areas, which is colored as red. Okay, each system has its own color scheme, okay, which is illustrated by the window to the side. This pop-up window showing his color scheme. It is recommended not to remove all the pressure areas, just to remove the high pressure areas, leaving some pressure areas of low quality, because it could be used to seat or to force your restoration into place. Here he is removing extra material, that's why he is re-adding it again. It is similar to that of wax pattern when you are building a wax pattern. Correcting the height of marginal ridge and the roundation of marginal ridge. Okay, this shoot is only to ensure that it is a one visit technique, okay, and just taking few minutes. He is now rechecking the restoration, okay, removing the wax pattern from the cavity preparation and rechecking its accuracy, rechecking the fitting surface. I would like to, in the coming scene, to note how accurate is the camera in recording the fine details, even the indentations of your cutting tools that could not be inspected by naked eye. Okay, you could note it now. He is now adding and correcting if he's if his opinion is this is an insufficient material, he would like to increase the thickness or the bulk or correct the anatomical form. This is how accurate the camera in recording even the indentations of your cavity, the indentations of your cutting tools. And also you could note that undercuts are not recorded. Now he is adjusting to print or to copy mill the restoration, like you are selecting a photo paper or a normal paper. What is the size of the paper? A4, A3, B2, letter, okay, the material type, okay. Just rechecking and verification of all procedures, and selecting the type of block, okay. What is the manufacturer? What is the size of your block? Because all of these affect two important things. Number one, the speed and the power or the torque of your engine to cut this workpiece. At the same time, the amount of required coolant. Okay, this is now. He's now checking the shade matching. I objecting. By all means, he is violating the infection control. Okay, at least he should wear gloves. This is the copy milling machine. It's like a printer. Those are the two small engines. The power of these engines, the torque, and the amount of water is adjusted according to the type of this block and the dimensions of this block. Also, the system allows to calculate how much the engine will remove from it, and that's why you should determine the type of your block and the dimensions of your block. The axis rotates just to allow cutting in 3 dimensions. And this is the final piece that needs just a refinement to remove this pro-former. This is the other tooth, next tooth, which is the second molar. I don't know why he is going for indirect tooth colored restoration. I don't have any answer for this, because it seems to be a very simple one, not distracted to that extent, you haven't any contraindication to go for direct to scalar restoration. Actually, I don't have an answer why he selected or indicated for indirect to scalar restorations. By the same way, he is inspecting all the design, okay, and reconstructed it in the same way. He is now by a special cutting point tip, diamond point, removing the sprue or the handle of the restoration. Finally, if we would like to evaluate our system having many advantages, including single appointment technique could be finished in a single visit. Conservative reduction of the tooth structure does not require too much widening of the cavity because of you are in need to get an accurate impression and you are afraid of the tear strength of your rubber impressions that could tear in very thin areas. But here you are using optical impression, you are not in need to increase the reduction to tooth structure. That's why you have no impression material used with the variables related to it. Bonded restoration that enhance strengthening of the remaining tooth structure as you are still using resin-based cement. Okay, decreased marginal gap of the newly advanced or the newly introduced systems, especially those of OmniCam, wear and hardness similar to that of enamel. This is a property of your ceramic. Less fracture of the inlay than other types, which are very fragile like that of Diker, okay, superior polishing characteristics and better aesthetic, but still it has the following disadvantages: sophisticated technique, high initial cost, high technique sensitivity of the optical impression, bulb reaction may be produced due to cutting or due to leaving the cavity opened until you finish, adhesive failure with the luting cement because you are using resin based cement or adhesive resin cement with ceramic materials that needs a special treatment, and this special treatment should be accurate to improve the adhesion between your luting cement and the fitting surface of ceramics. And the cohesive failure of the luting cement is also suspected. Now, those are the articles are used in preparing this presentation. If you would like to get much more information or to get much more readings about this topic, it's about 16 articles in addition to 4 textbooks. Those are my master textbooks I used in all my presentations for clinical operative dentistry. If you could purchase them, it's a great treasure to you to have these books. Finally, feel free to ask me at any time, as your questions are always welcomed. You could ask me if you have any inquiry by commenting to this video and I will reply to you as soon as possible. Also, you could email me and I will reply to you by the answer as soon as possible. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel and activate notification to get all the updates. I would like finally to thank you for assigning this time to listen to me. Until we meet again, goodbye. ياسر الوصيفي.